And I will try to make this as simple as possible. But this past, about a week and a half ago, excuse me, I had a visit from, well, that's pretty loud, isn't it? Speak of the devil, come on in here. Here comes Jim Enos right now. He contacted me and said, Denny, I've got something I think you need to see. And so we scheduled a time. He came up here and we spent some time together. And lo and behold, we ended up spending a whole morning together talking about this particular artifact and the importance of hanging on to it. So that's kind of my topic. As I prepared for this, I gave it this title because I do think it's important. That we collect these things, preserve them, and then maintain them somewhere. And that's exactly what Nancy spends most of her time doing. And so I'm going to start with what I think is the most important artifact that I use if I'm doing presentations or talking to kids or anybody else. Take one if you want it. If you don't want one, just pass it on. This is a 1935-36 road conditions map of Dyer County. And when David mentioned about maps a while ago, that's kind of what this focal point is, because these maps tell us a lot about this community. And if you'll notice when you walk out the door, I keep a stack of them by the door, because when people come in here, I try to give it away. I got this from the State Library and Archive. I got it in 1983 when we were doing a presentation in the school system when Lamar Alexander was the governor. And he had this thing called Homecoming 86, 1986. He called it Homecoming 86. And we started looking at our past. And somebody said, look at this. And I think this is the most revealing piece of information about the county that gives you that aha moment, because not only does it have the roads up there, but it shows little symbols. If you look at the legend, you'll see the little triangles there. All those triangles are elementary schools. And then if you find a triangle with a square in it, that's an elementary and a high school together. And it shows the location of all these things. And so I take this map and use it all the time with school kids or anybody who comes here, because there's 81 schools on that map. And that just blows most people's minds. So taking a little liberty with it, I have taken the same map and colorized it so you can see now that all the red ones are elementary and the blue ones are high schools. And there were 10 high schools in this county in 1936, which is beyond me. But that's the way the community existed then. So we talk about maps, the ones that Historical Society bought that Nancy's collected. Here's a cross-section of maps here and some over there. And these are basically duplicates or replicas, but they're good information when people want to know the history of the community, the history of Tennessee. If you're a Google searcher and you look at things online, look up Tennessee formation maps. Just Google it. And it tells you every county in Tennessee from the beginning all the way through, from east to west. It's an amazing little thing, because you can hit a button and it'll just kind of draw them in for you and tell you the year when it was organized. And you'll see that Crockett County came into existence for a while and then disappeared and then came back. So there's a lot of information like that out there connected to these maps. This map we use in our Minglewood exhibit down the hall. I got that from Jim Stark out of the book he had on railroads in western Tennessee. And I like this little map because if you look closely at it, it came out of a book that he had somewhere. And if you look closely, it says Dyersburg's up here, Minglewood's over here, and down at the end is Tiger Tail. And this is about, when people were harvesting trees across the bottom. And I like to use this map because, lo and behold, the mustard company that came into town from Germany a couple of years ago, they wanted to know about how to have a local brand. They were looking for a local name, a local brand, so they could put a label on it. And lo and behold, they used this map, and that's now called Tiger Tail. And you get Tiger Tail mustard, which I think is a neat connection to Dyersburg and Dyer County. So I think these are important. We're going to try to hang on to them as much as possible. This is the booklet that Jim brought me, and as it turns out, Jim Stark had one. Okay? So when you and I were going through scanning all those pictures, you know, here's one here. This one is much better shape than the one you brought me. It's the exact same book, and since it's in plastic, and we're going to, you know, I'll let you pass it around. You can't open it because we're trying to protect these things. But I'm going to show you pretty much that entire book because of the importance I think it is. This was done before there was a Chamber of Commerce. And when Dyersburg was looking to expand, and we were moving from agriculture into industry. And they put this book together, and I think it kind of speaks to what Dyersburg was trying to do. And they call it a city of homes and commercial industry. And when they did this...
Okay, check it out.
Excuse me. I didn't ask for you, Siri. Somebody help me here. I got to undo this. Hope that doesn't happen again. 1924. And even over here, another little title. A little city with a big welcome. So they're trying to promote Dyersburg and Dyer County in 1924. And sure enough, there's the courthouse. What we learned last month was about the clocks and all those kind of things, what John did. That's the Dyer County Courthouse. And it gives you a little description of what they're trying to do, which is to try to promote this community to people who have industry who might want to come here. I won't spend the whole time with it, but I have all these scanned thanks to Jim, and I can send them to you if you'd like to have it. Give me your email address and I'll send you the whole thing. There's Main Street looking south. And when Albert Falk started doing research on the cotton mill, he told us a few years ago that it began with a group called the City Club. And so this book has the City Club in it, and it even mentions their objective to build a bigger and greater Dyersburg, to locate factories that will employ people, double the business of every business and professional man. So they're promoting the town. It even lists the officers here, as well as standing committees here. So these were businessmen trying to recruit people to come to Dyersburg in 1924. There's the picture that so many people have seen up here on our wall. Here we have it here. It's also on the front of Bonnie's book that we did a few years ago, which is basically showing that the people who raised cotton would bring it to Main Street, and there was a cotton gin down by the river. So that's why they're all lined up there, getting ready to go down to the gin to be put into the cotton gin there. And it has pictures of the streets. So I went around today and spent a few minutes taking a look at these streets. This one up here is Troy looking south. And this one here is at Sampson at Phillips. And so I went by it this afternoon and I took a couple of pictures. There's the Troy Avenue looking south, somewhere in that neighborhood there. And you probably recognize that as you drive around town. There's Sampson looking north. And that's how it looks today. So some of these things are still, you know, important to us. We drive these streets all the time. Then they list the things that Dyersburg has. And it talks about an auto spoke factory. Now think about the, you know, the wheels that had wooden spokes in it. That's the time we're talking about. It talks about lumber yards, 3 stave mills, 2 bottle works, a hoop factory. You know what the hoop factory made? What's that?
I guess barrels.
Yeah, those metal things around the top of a barrel.
The ones they made were made out of elm. It was wooden.
Okay, yeah, could be that too. 1 newspaper, the State Gazette, 2 first-class hotels, and then 2 smaller hotels, 5 garages, 2 handle factories. You see what they're doing? They're trying to promote the community is what they're trying to do. There was a Red Cross, an American Legion, And then it talks about the county. Now, if you'll notice, somebody's written on this book. It says David B. Elsewhere in the book, you'll see the word David Buchanan. And I know, I went to school with David Buchanan. I don't think the same David Buchanan. But there's even, little notes like this that I think are kind of interesting to the whole story, that somebody somewhere took notes as they were looking at this. But it talks about the population of Dyer County. It was 30,000 in 1924. It talks how many square miles, how much paved road they have, how much agriculture they have, as well as alfalfa, and then wheat, cotton. I noticed this, it said last county north raising cotton successfully north of boll weevil. Does that mean we're so far north that the boll weevil wouldn't live here? Any suggestion?
It is true.
Is that what it is? Because of the climate,
At that point.
yeah, at that point. And then this one says south far enough to raise anything but tropical fruits. So they're promoting the community is what they're trying to do. Talks about the climate, the temperature. Do y'all do that today, Steve? Where are you? In the promotion that the chamber does for the community?
It's just not even that much to it. We don't promote climate.
You're more about workforce and transportation, rail availability, quality of life stuff
We're
today.
afraid to last us about humidity.
Yes, yes, I can just imagine. Well, you get the idea here. And there was a place called Ferguson Farms. I'm going to let Bill speak to that briefly, like we were talking about a while ago. Tell us where that is, Bill.
That is still Ferguson Farms, and it's out by the municipal golf course. You go out to Mary Bend Road, Ferguson still own it, from what I understand, and they still live in St. Louis, same family. And Bubba Stafford, remember Tommy Stafford on television, and his dad. Going blank on his first name. Worked for what was Tommy's dad's name?
Oh, I know, Billy.
Billy, that's it. I don't remember Bill, should Billy Stafford managed that farm, and retired from there. The log cabin, if you go out past where you turn to go to the golf course, log cabin still there. They just finished reworking that this past year, I think, fixing it up. I think his sister Jamie's still living there.
They're still fixing it right now.
Are they?
I think it's interesting that they tell the location of this particular farm on the Jefferson Davis Highway, 1 mile south of Dyersburg. You'll see that
It
again
came all the way over to 51 Highway, and I think it still does back there.
Right.
The
before the bypass
golf
was built.
course and the airport, I think, were carved out of that.
Right. Well, that's a neat little thing too, and most of us may not even heard of the Ferguson farm. If somebody told me about Tommy Stafford, I think that's where Tommy was raised out there.
Most people know that as Calcutta.
Right.
That's, I assume it's the same man, but that's what Bubba
Indian
Farms.
Calcut was, I think the family married
That's what I think.
Indian Calcut. The peony farm on the previous page, talking about having the world's largest peony farm. I think that was out there off of White Maynard.
That's exactly where it was, yes. I'm going to show you a picture of that in just a second. Matter of fact, I think it's right there. Yeah. This is the largest peony farm in the world. And you're right, it was located where Frank Maynard cuts through where the new primary school was built. And it was the world's largest. And if you read this whole thing, it talks about that they, let's see, the farm located, here again, Jefferson Davis Highway, 1 mile north of Dyersburg, and is one of the show places in Dyer County. Hundreds of thousands of peony blooms are shipped to Chicago market for Mother's Day each year. And of course, I'm not sure I'd know a peony if I walked up to one today.
Well, Carney Pocket had a huge peony farm too, out there where the golf course is. Well, it was one of the, I guess this area was shipping more flowers than anywhere.
Yeah. And now we don't do any, I don't guess, do we? Well, and of course, the churches in town were a big deal. This is the First Presbyterian Church. That's now the parking lot for First Baptist there on McGoy. right across from their gymnasium activity building. I think it's interesting, there's a drawing of the First Baptist Church, so maybe it was in construction. I'm not sure when First Baptist was constructed. Bill, do you know exactly? But you got First Baptist, and you also have a drawing of First Methodist, which is on McCoy. And then coming to Presbyterian, that's where the parking lot is now for First Citizens National Bank, on the corner of Masonic and Mill is where that is today. And then the schools, and it talks about that they built 3 schools in 1923. There's 2 of them, Alice Thurman and Jeannie Walker. Both of those no longer exist. Jeannie Walker's been torn down, but there's apartments there, and the building that was Alice Thurman on Page Street was converted into apartments. So part of the building's still there today. We've heard this story about the schools on this particular site. This is Dyersburg High School, and in that picture you can see that there was the original building, the second building, and the third building. They're all lined up together on this site right behind where we are now today here. And it says 2,000 pupils are enrolled in 1924. Now, I'm sure that means the entire school system, not just Dyersburg High School. That's a lot of kids for a high school. And then it has a picture of the Bruce School. And this school was in the Bruce community. And of course, that school has been torn down a long time ago, and the one that's there now is the remnants of the building that replaced this one for the black community. I like this because they advertise a proposed hotel called the Hotel Marion. I don't know where it's supposed to be built, but they describe, you know, what's going to be there, a ballroom and a restaurant and all these kind of things. When you read it, it kind of makes you think maybe it might be about where Security Bank is, which became the Hotel Cordell Hull, and they finally built that one. But they're advertising a hotel that never materialized. The Hotel Atwood, which was located on the spot, corner of Main Street and Court Street, where Clayton Hayes has his little business down there now because this building burned. Notice too that it was called Hotel Atwood, but up here it says Hotel Virginia because the name changed several times. I think when it burned it was called the Hotel Fork and Deer. I forget what year it burned. Talks about First Citizens, and First Citizens was a financial institution to help draw people to Dyersburg for industry purposes. Notice they have $2 million in deposits approximately. I don't know what it is today. It talks about they're a combination of 2 leading banks. We talked about that before, that the one that was located on the northeast corner was Citizens Bank, and the one on the southwest corner was First National Bank, and the 2 combined and built this building on the other corner of downtown. There's your Bear Delaney Hospital. It advertised that there was 2 hospitals in town at the time. This one's called Bear Delaney, but before that it was called the Hosmer Hospital. And I like this photograph. This is actually a postcard talking about artifacts. I got this from Tracy Latham. 2 postcards here, and that little photograph of the Hosmer Hospital, which became the Bear Delaney Hospital. Notice that it looks like a house on the front, and that there was an addition built onto it. I'll see if I can back this up and show you the difference, because to me, you see the difference here? You can tell that this part right here was added on basically around the front of that house, or that what appeared to be a house. I just think that's an interesting view of things. The other hospital was Dyersburg General. This is on East Court. I should have gone by and got a picture so you know exactly where it was. And I think that's where somebody has a business down there. What's it called? Tanglewood is in there today on the north side of East Court Street. They talk about industry, and this is a Dyersburg milling company. As near as I can tell, these particular types of industry were located near the railroad tracks. And so this one, I can't say for certain that this is the drawing of the building that's there today, but this is what I propose this may be.
I think that's,
yeah.
Yeah, it's down there close to where y'all's building is.
I thought that was probably a concept drawing, just like Hotel Marion,
Very likely.
because the cotton mill came in 1929.
Right.
I think that was a proposed picture of the cotton mill.
Could
If
be.
you look, there's houses built behind it.
Yes, yes. Well, and of course, you know, this was a mill at one time. And this particular building's been several different types of industry over the years.
My dad said they had a great big flywheel in that extended through 2 floors.
In this building?
Yeah, and that it's supposed to be driven by a steam engine, and it never fitted to run.
Right.
But it was handle seed or something. I
Right.
don't remember what.
Well, you know that
That's agricultural product.
if you look at the history, you know, David did a thing on Mill Avenue, because you know, part of the reason Mill Avenue was called Mill Avenue, because there was a mill down by the river, you know, and so there were several mills in town like this. This may have been just one. When I think of the mill, I think of a sawmill. I think most of the mills we're talking about are like flour mills, things like that. And I think that's what this was at one time. Of course, we all know about the King Mansion, as well as a couple more houses. This house at the top here, of course, is gone. This is where John's grandfather lived, on the corner of Sampson and East Court. So I didn't go take a picture of that spot, but I did find what I think is this house. This says the residence of Charles G. Watkins, and I think he's one of those people in the city club. So there's a little close-up picture of that. And here's where I think this house is today. This is on Troy Avenue, going up the hill on the left, right near that parking lot that's right there on the corner across from that old church.
White Davis Street is the next street, you know, right beside the park.
That is Watkins, isn't it?
That's Watkins.
And you're right, you're
Well,
right.
that is probably, I could have gone on.
Yes, very likely. Yeah.
That's the address on Troy, and that's on, it's past, just past where you go down to Ladder Woods.
No, before that,
Before that.
going up the hill.
Cohen's house.
Going up the
Cohen
hill.
had, yeah, Cohen's had the
Yeah,
dress shop downtown, that's long.
Catherine, yeah.
okay.
Catherine Cohen.
Is that right, or is that the driveway?
It's next, yard was right before the house. Walker Yard.
Yeah, this is the last one before you get to that parking lot there on the left, on the corner of Watkins and Troy.
The next house.
Yeah. It also mentions the residence of J.N. Parker here and Robert Burke here. And they may look familiar to you, so I went and took some pictures of these. There's a close-up of that one. We know this is the Beazle home on Parker down there. And this one, we know it is Dr. Freeman's house. He sold it to Tim Walker recently, and Tim's living there now. It's right there. 2 more homes that is featured in this booklet. Smith Hill here, and this is J. E. Benson. And the Smith Hill home looked like that in 1924. And you're not going to believe how it looks today. Looks exactly the same. And it changed hardly any. I took that picture this afternoon. This this house is interesting because this is where Nancy lives. This is Nancy's house. It's over here on Sampson, on the corner of Sampson and, what is that called? Wallace, there. What about I took a picture of it? It's kind of grown up because of the trees and things, but this is where it looks like today. So they're showing the homes of the community to kind of promote the community. This particular building I could not find, but we've talked about it a while ago, and we think it's up on, is it Wallace? I think that's Sharp. Yeah, I hadn't found that one yet, but I'm gonna go see if I can't find it. Anyway, this book was done by the City Club to promote the community, and I think it's interesting that we still have that, and it's important that we do. At the same time, one day, Tracy came to me and said, Danny said, you're not going to believe what I've got. So, some of these, I won't be able to pass around, but Tracy brought me these, what, 3 or 4 months ago?
Yeah.
You want to tell the story where these came from?
Yeah, I didn't steal them, I'll tell you that. Back some years ago, the city traded their city hall building for where they are now. And I'm happy to remember this, I almost can't remember the details of that. I think Frank Burnett had worked out a deal with them, and he actually owned the old city hall building in the days just before they moved out of it. And I had it for sale for Frank. And I called Glenn Twiddle one day and I said, Glenn, are you out of this building? And he said, we're out. I had a key. He said, I said, now you're sure you're out? We're out. Well, I knew there was stuff in there I was interested in. and I told him what it was. He said, look, there's a pile of prints there on the floor upstairs and you're welcome to them. So I went up there and there's a pile about this deep. I wish I'd gotten all of them. I kicked myself for not getting all of them. I got a bunch of them. And they, back in those days, in the 20s or so forth, when you went to get a building permit, I presume you had to have a drawing. Well, we didn't have Xerox machines and things like that, and these are hand-drawn.
Yes.
Buddy Plumbanks had a lot of them in that pile. And they're gorgeous. They are actually works of art.
Yes.
And so I went through and got as many as I could. And I gave some of them to homeowners. My brother-in-law was one, Doug Haynes' house was in there. And the Brayton house, of course, they had prints of their own, but I gave it to them too. And so I brought a number of them to you. And I have 2 more. I'm trying to figure out what they are. I'm going to bring those to you.
Okay.
So that's where they came from.
We've had these protected because we don't really get our hands on them because, you know, they're valuable documents. And there's multiple pages for each one of these. So what I did yesterday is to open them up and took pictures of them. I didn't scan them, but I got a scanner that I can run them through. But I think you'll get an idea of what's here because if you'll notice, first of all, this first drawing is of Rowan High School. This goes back to the map I gave you at the very beginning because Rowan have a high school. And we don't think about Rowan having a high school because there's no school at all there anymore. But this is the building that used to stand there. It's been torn down. And the drawings are not that clear as a picture, but let me just show you. This is the front door, and you can see it had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 classrooms, and the 2 in the back had a petition here, and there's a stage right there. So they could have an auditorium for performances and for, you know, things that the school kids might do. And over the years, the community grew. At some point, they lost their high school but kept the elementary school, probably through grades 7 and 8, first of all. Then eventually it dropped down to grade 6. So if there ever was a ball team, it wasn't much of a ball team. And if you talk to people from Rowan, they'll tell you about roller skating in the auditorium. That they'd open up the school late at night or in the afternoons, weekends, and let them roller skate on the hardwood floor in there. So later on, there was an addition built over here on the end, and they built a small cafetorium, they called it, that also had a kitchen. So they had another auditorium, another stage, a place to eat, and then they could actually shoot basketball half court in there. Now all that's gone. But I do think that this particular image might give you a better visual of how that school looked when it was standing there. This was the front here, so as you drove down 104 going through Roella, it'd be on your left. Actually, this building replaced one that's set up on the hill back there because the lot was low down by the road and it went up the hill to the very top. And the original school was on the hill. And so as that school began to become out of date, dilapidated, they eventually wanted to upgrade. They built this one. And I don't have a year for this. I don't know exactly when it was, but isn't that neat to have that artifact that we can go back to and see the way this was designed? Yes, sir.
Now, was that a 12-year school or was that an 8-year?
10. It started out as 10, and
Yes.
apparently pretty quickly went to 8.
Now keep in mind that schools on that map that I gave you, first of all, and I said there's 10 high schools in Dyer County, most of those high schools were 2-year high schools. So you would only go through grade 10. You could leave there with your diploma and go to work someplace. But your diploma also said it qualified you to go to the other 2 years, like at Dyersburg, to get your final 2 years of high school. So a lot of those high schools on that map that I handed out first were actually 2-year high schools as opposed to 4. Which I think is an interesting concept too. We don't think that way today. I like the architecture of this because of the brick here and here. So I did take one picture of the entrance. It had a semicircular entrance over the door in the front. And again, it says Walden High School, and that's the front entrance, and how to design and put all that together. So people that are into mechanical drawing and CAD, and we call it CAD today because it's computer-aided design. Well, back in those days, it was paper and pencil. So the things you're looking at here were drawn with a paper and pencil.
Is that on paper or tracing cloth?
I don't know about that. I don't know.
The tracing cloth was I think a linen.
It's whatever this is.
It is kind of a linen, yeah, now that you mention it.
It's got starch on it.
Probably so.
It's heavily starched, so it's
Yeah.
about like mylar or something later.
Well, the interesting thing is that when I was young, I wanted to be an architect. And so when I graduated from high school, my dad gave me a mechanical drawing board. And I never used it, never went to school to be an architect, but that's what I wanted to do, so he gave it to me. Well, when I decided to be a teacher and went to college for that, I gave my drawing board to my brother, who used it to design cabinets. And when he passed away, I got my drawing board back. And I have it. And it's important to me because of that little story and the fact that Chuck made a career out of that. And the fact that you need to know something to make these drawings like this, to scale, with your T-squares and your angles and all those kind of things. And my son is going to school now up at New Bern, and he's studying CAD. He ain't got a clue about this kind of stuff, because it's a different era. But I do think thank you so much for hanging on to those things, because I think it's a neat piece of information. Now the other one that is one of these drawings here, they call this the Dyersburg Municipal Bathhouse, which what I call it is basically Okina Pool. Everybody knows about Okina Pool and the fact that it's an oval and it's deep in the middle, and you can jump in on either side of it, and you're not going to fall in some deep water. But I remember as a kid going to the Okina Pool to go swimming, and when you would go in, this is the drawing of that particular building. And of course, the front door's here, and you go in, and the men would go to this side over here. There's a place for the restrooms. Women's over here, and they had a little basket. Remember those baskets you put your clothes in? You got a little pin you put with a number on it, put on your swim shorts. All that's designed in here. And so I took a couple of pictures of that, and there's a better drawing of a women's dressing area. There's some privacy there. The men didn't have much privacy over here. But I remember distinctly as a child walking through that little spot right there, you had to walk through water about that deep that supposedly had some chemical in it or something
Chlorine, wasn't it?
it may have been chlorine, and you walked through that water before you got in the pool. I remember that distinctly. And this little section here was the counter when all the baskets were. They keep up with your clothes when you went swimming. And I haven't been out there lately, so I don't know what it looks like in there now, but it's nostalgic to me to remember how it used to be and the way we used to do that when we went swimming at Okina. And then this drawing here shows what I'm going to call the front, which is the west side of the building. And then the east side, of course, where you'd come out onto that concrete deck to go swimming there at Okina. And again, there's no date on this. I don't know exactly when this was drawn or when it was built. I was hoping Bart Williams might show up, because Bart studies this pool quite a bit, and he's gone to bat for the city maintaining it for a long time. This drawing intrigues me as well, and this does have a date on it. It says Robert Chevrolet Company, and it's got a 1940 down here on the corner. And if you look at that particular overview, looking down on the building, Robert Chevrolet was on the corner of Main Street and Masonic. It's in the building where Simmons Bank is today. And it's an interesting building because I did not realize when I saw these drawings there was a basement in there. I did not know that. But these drawings show the basement. At the same time, you have garage doors here. Now, if you go down to where Simmons Bank is today, this is a little yard thing with a flagpole somewhere right along in there. And those doors have been closed, but they had a garage door out the back over here. This was a shop area in here. This was a showroom here, where most of the bankers sit. But they opened up the back here. So now when you drive through what used to be the building for the drive-in window things back there. And it's interesting to me. I was hoping Jerry Roberts might come here to hear this, because Jerry was raised in the Roberts family. He remembers a lot of this old building. That's pretty complicated. You see how detailed that was to get that building built with all the details they did. But when you get here, you can start to see that basically the shop area was back in here where they work on your cars. And I remember, does anybody remember that it had 2 levels of cars? You drive up on this second level beside it. And I always thought as a kid that that second level where the new cars would be stored was added later. But in this original drawing is that original ramp. And if you look closely, you can see here, it's even got the sign that says Robert Chevrolet. I just wonder where that might be. Where did it end up? I don't know. But you can see, this is looking north. There's that garage door that now is basically when you come through and you come out of those driving windows from the bank there. And the Robert Chevrolet sign is gone. They remodeled that. And I think Farmers Bank did that back in the 80s or something like that. And they won some awards for the design of how to retrofit that old building. It was so well done. But you can see the windows here had a lot of light in it. And then this particular angle here, those windows have been taken out. And so if you're sitting in the parking lot behind the Mustard Company store, and you look at that bank building, you're looking at the left, and people drive through and come out onto Masonic Street, because you're actually driving through the building today. And again, there's the sign there. I don't know if I did. I did put one particular image off of this drawing to show you that the ramp for the parking deck was actually done in 1940. So when the bank got it, what I remember is you would drive through that parking like you do now, and you would drive up a ramp to get on top. And so when the bank redesigned it. They took that ramp out and put the other one that comes up the other side. So there's now a ramp coming up off of Masonic Street to get people to the top up there. And since then, they've added rooms up on that parking deck today. Again, another neat artifact that, you know, we don't want to lose. So, what I want to tell you too, other things that we do, we can digitize slides. We can scan photographs. These particular drawings were so big I couldn't get them through a scanner. I just used my iPhone, is what I did. And stood up over the top of it, take those images. But we can digitize slides. I've been asked to on several occasions. Digitize records and convert them to MP3s, things like that. At the same time, people sometimes will bring us old movies, and these are part of our exhibit. There's 3 or 4 of them over here. 8mm movie cameras, movie projectors. They all work, and the bulbs work. You know, so if you've got some old 8mm you'd like to have converted, look us up. Yes, sir.
Bud Rig, do 8mm movie frames or anything? With the slide digitizer, will it also handle movie film?
I don't know about that. It might. You can kind of get the feel for what I'm trying to say here is that we've got so many different types of media. There's a lot of media in this room that we keep on display. And we try to protect them. And Nancy spends a lot of time, and the Historical Society does too, spending money on things like this. This is an acid-free box. And so this is a way for us to protect some of the things we have in storage. And I asked Nancy to bring me a few. And so she has a database that keeps up with these things. And so the items, this is an obituary for Pilgrim Rest Baptist Church. There's some data in here. And we collect things, and we don't always put them on display. We try to keep up with them and know we have it, so somebody asks us for it, we can pull it out and get it to them. But it's a labor of love because, you know, we don't get paid to do this. And it's something that we think is important, and the work that Maryland's doing with the county government records is basically required by law, which is good. And that's why the county's done that, to have that archive down there. Whereas right now, the things we're doing it because we think it's the right thing to do. And we have some shelves that we use down there. And you'll find you know, newspaper articles and things like that. This is a picture of, I guess the last picture of Ridgewood School. Before it was used as a barn for a long time before it was torn down. Having these things is important to us, but at the same time, we feel like it needs to be done for the future, and that someone needs to maintain this and spend some time working on it in order to help document the history of our community. And so that's what we're doing. As luck would have it, I've been spending some time at Dyer State Community College, and I know you work in the library out there, don't you? And I was out there this week because this is the 50th anniversary of the college. It opened in 1969, 50 years ago this year. And so they're starting to think about, you know, their past and history. And my relationship with, you know, this place and the museum and the Historical Society has me kind of looking around. So I went out there this week, and sure enough, they have an archive. And it's in 3-ring binders. And the first binder I picked up was in 1969. And I picked that thing up, and I'm going like, whoa, this is when I started school out here. And you're flipping through that, and they're in plastic sleeves, and they basically are just newspaper article after newspaper article after newspaper article talking about the fact that Dyersburg got a community college. As a kid, I was raised at Fox. I lived 2 houses down from where James lives right now. And we'd play basketball outside at night with all the friends in the community. And we'd have a transistor radio sitting up on the side of the wall next to the basketball goal. And we'd listen to the news and listen to the Beatles and whoever else was playing at the time while we'd play basketball. And I remember distinctly as a child having a news flash come on in 1967 that the first community college outside of Memphis had been awarded to Jackson. And I was so disappointed. I'm going like, wait a minute. Why wouldn't Dyersburg qualify for a community college? Well, little did I know that 2 years later, when I graduated from this building in 1969, Dyersburg State opened up. And that's where I went to school. And so, there's a connection historically to the fact that Dyersburg got its community college 2 years after Jackson. But you look at what Dr. Boyer has done with that campus out there, on the old golf course, you're talking about golf course out there with the Ferguson Farms. I'm sure, you told me this story, haven't you? About, yeah.
The new golf course?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Because we had to give up our golf course to get to college. And then that was the city's opportunity to go build one out yonder. Yeah. Was that built on the Ferguson Farms?
I believe that's right, but a bunch of farmers got together with whatever equipment they had, and they started the new golf course out by the airport.
Yeah.
And then after a few months, I think it got a little bit more professional.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was the story.
Well, see, and I'm so glad you guys are here today, because this is exactly what I'm trying to do, is to find ways for us to make these connections, because if we don't talk to people who lived it and were part of it, whether all the things that Murray knows, or Tracy, or Jim, or any of us, we've got to get these stories put together and hang on to them for the future. And the difference in what we're doing here in the Historical Society is we're doing, the history of the community, and it doesn't have to be government. Whereas what Maryland's doing is government documents. It's courts and it's clerks and, lawsuits and divorces and all that. I dare say one of these days there's going to be an archive for the city. Right now I think it's just kind of storing, keeping things stored somewhere. But what we're doing is trying to create our own archive, and so I believe we're going to try to move beyond these things. And I'm going to sum it all up, as I told y'all, 5:30, and it's 5:28. Is that if you have things that are historically significant, just like when Jim called me and said, I got something you need to see. Even if we can't have it, let us scan it and archive it and put it somewhere so that we can do things for this community that will benefit the next generation. And if you want to help the Historical Society do what we do, join us and give us some ideas about future programs, and we'll see if we can't try to plan for that too. I will tell you that next month is February, and my plan for next month is probably going to be something along Black History Month. That's what I'm thinking next month. Yes, sir.
I just want to say, everybody has a story, and everybody knows your family and your community, and if you don't write it down, or if you don't tell somebody else when you pass away, your story will be forever lost. So I would encourage everybody to make like a journal, or just write down some community activities, or your neighbors. Record that, because that's our county history.
David?
Leon Cummings has donated his father's barber certificates and all his
Oh, cool. Cool.
barbering things like shave mud, shave brushes, old strop, and there's about 3 straight razors in there. He asked for this loan.
shop. And I understand there's two, one was in the basement, the old city hall building, and another one on the
Yes.
east side. He does not know which one that his dad worked with, but he does know that he was good enough to be in the first chair.
That's good. That's good to know.
My dad used to say I got my first haircut. But anyway.
Well, thank you for that. That's good. And that's perfect timing. This was exactly what we're talking about. I will say this, if you didn't know this, I mentioned Tim Walker bought the house up there that Dr. Freeman used to own on the corner of Sampson and Phillips there. He's working downtown, and the family, that's Wendell Walker's son, Judy Patton's brother, and Steve Walker's, brother and sister. The family is finding somebody to do the barber shop underneath the law office where Maynard's used to be underneath there. And so they put the barber pole back up, and they found a barber chair. I'm not sure they found a barber or not, but they're trying to revitalize that particular business downtown, which I think is because I remember the barber pole over by City Hall when I was a kid. I never had my hair cut in there, but I remember that barber pole over there. So,
Real quick, I got a question I meant to ask earlier, I got off on another subject. In the book that you listed, they listed 3 brick companies.
yes.
One was Nichols on Nichols Avenues, Lake Road. The other was Tennessee Tile, which was Tennessee Brick and Tile, just south of the overpass on Kist.
Okay.
Where was the third one?
I don't know. You know?
No, I was gonna bring that up.
Okay. If anybody knows that, let's try to gather that because
Nichols, he went by, he changed that, his name about 3 times. As a matter of fact, the brick and tile, I think that's
Was it? Well, those two were, I know we're not the same time. In 20, 20,
Well, I think Jim was still out there on
I'm pretty sure it said there were 3. And
I think so.
I caught that, and I have no idea where the third one was.
I don't either. Murray?
I would say that when I was growing up, in the 40s and 50s, the barbershop was below Skip Riley's office. They actually did tonsillectomies with a burning hot iron. And originally, the barber pole originates red because they were surgeons. Barbers were also early surgeons. And because they were good with scissors, and good with razors, but I actually did it. I could believe my father told me that, and I went down there to see one.
Well, any of the artifacts we have, any of the documents we have, any of the stories we have, we'll be glad to share with you. At the same time, if you have things you want us to work on and maybe help preserve or hang on to, let us know. Whether it be digital, whether it be film or drawings, whatever. We'd like to be the place where these things are maintained and held on to.
You're asking for ideas, and I know we're running late, you're asking ideas for other programs. I would like to see, rather than a formal presentation like this, a group of people get together, have a topic, bring some coffee, sit down and discuss it, do a little research, whatever, just like the brick and tile place where it was.
Yeah.
Everybody bring a laptop, everybody, whatever papers you've got, come up with a topic, get together and see what we come up with.
And I would like your feedback. If you'd rather have a session that is basically a research session, like Bill's talking about. We don't do genealogy, but I'm sure we would help you if you needed to, because there's a genealogy group in the library that works pretty regularly on Wednesdays. I think they meet down there. But give us your feedback. We'd like to do more. Question before we dismiss. All right, thank you for coming. We're going to try to post this on the web for those people who didn't get here today, and come back next month. Thank you very much. Danny.
Yeah.
Where's that guy?